This is Gareth Southgate, and this is the Three Lions podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Three Lions podcast. My name is Russell Osborne and this is an independent England football supporters podcast. I hope you're well. Well, we've done it once again. Qualified for the European Championships. This time, Euro 2024 in Germany. As bigger an opportunity as they come. It's one we really need to grasp with both hands. In a moment, I'll be joined by Aidan Smith from both tacticallyspeaking.co.uk and threelions.net. First though, coming your way very soon are a couple more episodes. I will be previewing the upcoming Lionesses doubleheader against Belgium in the Nations League. And I've also been working on an episode that looked at a turbulent time in England's history 20 years ago. Stay subscribed and you'll not miss them. Okay, on to Australia. If you listen to the preview episode, you would know that we've not won a game when we played on Friday the 13th, but we put that to bed just with a 1-0 win with the predicted second string side. And it's now that I'd like to bring in Aidan Smith. Hello, Aidan.
Hello. Good to be back.
Good to have you back. You keeping well?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Loved your stat, by the way, about Friday the 13th. I didn't know about that one.
Yeah, that's the third game that we've played on Friday the 13th. We'd lost the two previous ones.
Oh, horror.
Yes. So, good to put that one to bed. But yeah, Australia, it was always a funny old fixture against a team that, we don't play often, but it was always going to be seen as an opportunity to blood some new players, and that's pretty much what Gareth did. Just running through the lineup: Sam Johnston, Trent Alexander-Armstrong, Fikayo Tomori, Lewis Dunk, Levi Colwill made his debut, Jordan Henderson, James Maddison, Conor Gallagher, Jared Bowen, Ollie Watkins returned, and Jack Grealish started as well. No Harry Kane. That was the first game he'd been left out of since the starting lineup against Andorra in October 2021. But go on, I take it. Did you watch it on the telly?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
How did it come across? Because I've got to be honest, I sat there in the stand and I thought, this is hard work. This game, it's not grabbing me.
Oh, you were there in the stadium again, were you?
Yes, yeah.
So, no, I don't know. I think it was one of those rare England games, I've got to say, that where I did find my mind slipping a little bit and just sort of losing focus at various points. That classic bit, at the beginning of the second half where it all goes a bit silent and the paper aeroplanes come out and the Mexican wave comes out. And you can still feel it back home. Just as we were waiting for that first goal to come in. But as soon as it happens and we remember what it's like to score a goal, and then, I think we closed the game out well. But I was just saying to you before we started recording that, I think 8 of the 11 that started the game had fewer than 10 caps. It's what everyone calls for every game, but as soon as it happens, no one's happy, and they want, the new players to be sort of drip fed into the starting lineup bit by bit throughout the year.
There's a fine line, isn't there? As you say, 8 players there with 10 or less caps. So we all want it, but it's just too many, really. And I know, obviously, we had the Italy game coming up that Gareth was obviously sort of holding the players back for, because that was the more important one. But this was an opportunity for the likes of Lewis Dunk again to have an impact. Jared Bowen for his 5th cap. Ollie Watkins to make a stand for a future starting position. But I don't know, none of them really stamped their authority on it. I know Ollie Watkins scored, but that was he just slid in and put Jack Grealish's cross in the net, really, didn't he?
Yeah, it's one of those ones, isn't it? You play so many young players, and everyone says, "Oh, well, they're the best of the best. They've got the quality. They should be able to be fine." But people talk about partnerships, and it really is a thing. You've got to. They've not had any time to sort of develop those partnerships and things like that. It's interesting you mentioned Lewis Dunk there. I was just going to make a point. I think if the last 2 months have shown me anything watching England, the 4 games that have happened over the last 2 months, I would say it's shown that we do have, I'd say, 2 or 3 standout centre-backs who will replace John Stones and Harry Maguire after a lot more games for England. And I emphasise a lot because I have this discussion with a lot of people, and everyone wants Maguire out, specifically. But you look back through the history books, no one's won the Euros playing centre-backs with fewer than 15, 20 caps. So whatever you say, it does play play a part in the thinking of who do you select. But yeah, I think Mark Gehi specifically, but Lewis Dunk and Levi Colwill. I know Colwill is predominantly a left back at this moment in time, but he's played most of his football as a centre back. And I think those 3, if they continue to play at club level, are really, really good centre backs. And specifically Lewis Dunk, I've been very, very impressed in the last couple of months.
I'm not quite sure how old Lewis Dunk is. I don't know,
31, 32, something like that.
So, I mean, even if he's late 20s, that's still, I don't know, how far ahead do we look with him? His sort of age is almost against him.
People get very caught up with looking ahead that they forget to look at now. And it was the same with Ross Barkley, I remember. Do you remember when he came back into the fold in sort of 2018, 19 sort of time? And everyone was, Ross Barkley's rubbish, because they know that there's this guy called Mason Mount who's playing every week for Chelsea. But Barkley was one of our best players at that moment in time. It's just that he wasn't a fashionable player. He wasn't, he'd been and gone already. And people just wanted something a bit new. Because the novelty of Barkley had worn off or whatever. And I suppose a lot of people would be saying that about Lewis Dunk had Harry Maguire been playing very well in the last 18 months. But because he hasn't, everyone's calling for Lewis Dunk. I'm sure that as soon as he makes a mistake, people will say that he's past it. But no, I'm very, very impressed.
Fair comment. I get where you're coming from there. One thing I should say is Australia played really well, and they had some good opportunities. And on maybe a better night, they would have really tested. I mean, Sam Johnston made a couple of great saves, but they put another couple just wide of the post or just over. If they get a striker that can get it on target, then they could have really given us a run for our money. And we may have seen a 2003 scoreline that when we lost to them. So yeah, full credit to Australia. One thing we do need to just really touch on is it was in the news, obviously, and Jordan Henderson. When the team was announced in the stadium, there was the audible sort of jeers and boos for him, and I just put it down to, okay, there's still people that aren't happy with Jordan Henderson. Game went on, and then I think it was on the hour mark, Gareth made his 4 substitutions. Trippier came on for Henderson, and it was a real disappointing part of the night. I mean, obviously the game wasn't spectacular, but it came across on the PA that Henderson was coming off, and there was this initial boos for him, and then just almost a silence. There was very
the whole
little
time that he was running off, wasn't it? Yeah.
It wasn't. It was very un-England-like, and I know Gareth's gone on record as saying we shouldn't boo our players, and quite rightly so. They're wearing the England shirt; they deserve to get there. But it was such a strange moment. I think there's so many different angles that can maybe come of this. But let's not forget, he's he's 79, 80 caps, I think, as he came on against Italy. 3 goals, 3 important goals he's scored for England. He's a player that is part of England, has been for the past 10, 15 years. And I think he will be next year as well. He's still going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to remove my own thoughts from this, I would say, yeah, I get it. There is a reasonable defense for the booing. You know, Southgate has encouraged them to play politics and, you know, get involved in things far greater than football. And I think that's fantastic. But it's backfired with undeniable hypocrisy. We can all, you know, fairly comfortably admit that. And the only argument against the booing, it seems to be the only one, you know, a very small argument, but it happens to be the one that I agree with. And it's, you know, it's illogical to boo your own player. Southgate can't grasp this concept that people are booing their own, you know, a player playing for their own team. And I think, you know, there's an argument that Southgate is a little bit tone deaf there. In reality, it's going to happen. But I can't lie. I agree with him in that it shouldn't be happening. It doesn't strike me, you know, whether or not you like what he's done, he's playing for your team. I get it. I think, you know, I think the reason people boo tends to be because they want to distance themselves from the players that, you know, they wouldn't have picked if they were the manager. And it's been the same with Harry Maguire the whole way through. And that way, when it all goes wrong, you know, they aren't left heartbroken and vulnerable, but instead they're able to say, "Oh, I told you so," you know, because they specifically pronounced their dissociation from that player. But to me, it still just seems totally a lot. You know, why? That's not helping anyone. Why would you boo him?
Yeah, I mean, in just looking at the alternatives for Jordan Henderson, I mean, who have we got? Calvin Phillips was obviously saved for Tuesday. Gareth obviously had him in mind. I'm not quite sure Conor Gallagher is in the same mould personally. Mason Mount has been injured, wasn't selected, and James Ward-Prowse doesn't really seem to fit Gareth's thinking really. So I mean, Rashford, no, maybe not. I mean, who else are we gonna? What are the alternatives? I can only see Jordan Henderson being continuously picked for England up until next year.
Yeah, you're so right. It seems so funny when I hear people say, "Oh, you know, I can't believe he's still getting played getting picked when he's playing his football in a really low league." But I mean, it's not as though as soon as he signed for the Saudi league, he dropped 5 levels. You know, he's still the same player that he was last year. Yeah. You know, he's still Jordan Henderson, who's very, very good at football and was Liverpool captain not 5 months ago. So I disagree with it from a footballing perspective. Yeah, and you're absolutely right. James Ward-Prowse has been on fantastic form, but if we don't have that bank of evidence for him playing for West Ham, you know, for a really long time at a consistently high level, yes, it's dangerous to bring him in because he's already got slightly pissed off with, you know, being picked, being not picked, and being used as a sort of utility player during qualifiers and then never getting to a tournament. So you've got to sort of toe the line there. Calvin Phillips is a different kind of player, but equally he's played exceptionally well against Italy and against Scotland last month.
Yeah.
And who was the other one you mentioned? Mason Mount. Mount. I mean, at the moment out of the equation, but also he's not even of the same mould at all. And Conor Gallagher, for me, is one of the most hard-working players I've seen in a long time. But unfortunately, it doesn't replace the fact that I think, is a level below Jordan Henderson.
One last point on the Henderson issue is, and it's a bit twisted, this one, you may think, that Gareth's contract at this moment in time is up until the end of the Euros.
Yeah.
I think he will continue to select Jordan Henderson up until then, injuries permitting. If Gareth decides to walk away at the end of the Euros, hopefully with a trophy in hand, then he leaves the problem to someone else, doesn't he? Leaves the problem to the next England manager. So he doesn't really, he knows what he wants and he's just going to stick with it and leave that problem to whoever the next incumbent is.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. If Southgate played a popularity contest whenever he picked a team, our squad would look incredibly different. Jordan Henderson, thinking about the players that we've just mentioned, Jordan Henderson is incredibly likely to be in the squad next Euros, but even sort of disregarding that, he'll be there in March, which almost guarantees your place in June.
Yeah,
sort of injury permitting, fitness permitting, and all of that. So yeah, I would totally agree with you. I think Southgate will walk away after Euro 24, regardless of what happens, and I think he's made his mind up on that already.
Yeah.
And I think Jordan Henderson's involvement, we can all fairly confidently say, will be quite that, involvement.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to the more important game of the international window, with the greatest of respect to Australia, but it was Italy in the qualifying in Group C. It was the top of the table clash. It was all round changes, 11 changes that Gareth brought in. Back came Pickford, Walker, Stones, Maguire, Trippier, Rice, Bellingham, Phillips, Foden, Kane and Rashford. How are your thoughts going into this?
Well, for one of the first times in a long time, I guessed the exact 11 correctly.
Did you now?
Yeah. I just, having seen the wingers who started again, because for me it was only ever going to be, is it Foden, Rashford, really? Who's going to be starting on that wing?
Yeah.
I did expect Calvin Phillips to start ahead of a different profile of player like a Trent Alexander-Arnold in midfield or something like that, and I expected Trippier ahead of Levi Colwill. But yeah, having seen the wingers against Australia, it was very sort of static the way they played. They'd sort of receive the ball to feet instead of darting in behind, and then they'd turn back and play inside. And it wasn't particularly adventurous, specifically from Grealish. Rashford and Foden offer you something a little bit different, and I think actually on either wing they sort of complement each other because they almost play in a total opposite way to each other. Foden's particularly good at coming short and working in tight spaces. Rashford's really good at getting in behind, and he sort of covers the ground on that touchline. Really, really impressed with the link up between Kane and Bellingham. Yes. I don't want to be one of these people who starts pinning all of our hopes on these two players next year, but I think with Bellingham specifically in that number 10 role, because he's doing that for his club, and because it means that he can be that much more free. And, if we've got two sitting midfielders, the link up between him and Kane, it means that we're able to play a number 10 while still having, enjoying the luxuries of Kane dropping deep, which helps our team out an awful lot. And for the penalty was a perfect example of that. Kane sort of holding the ball out, Bellingham running straight through and collecting the ball on his way. And if he doesn't get fouled, it's a shot at least, and probably a goal.
The penalties was how it came about. Yeah, Bellingham passed into Kane, who sort of got the ball turned as Bellingham rushed past him. Fed up with talking about VAR, but obviously you watching it on the telly, what was going on there? Because we're sitting in the stand, and it must have been a good 2.5 minutes of. It was clear it was a penalty, but what else were they chatting about?
Well, yeah, it was baffling to me that it took so long. It said on the screen as I was watching it at home, penalty check, and I thought, well, that shouldn't be taking that long. If they'd been checking for a possible red card, then I would have understood it, because I thought that he was that Di Lorenzo was the last man, and that he would have therefore been sent off if it was a penalty. So if they'd have been checking that, fair enough. But they were checking a penalty. Yeah, like you say, we've probably exhausted the VAR conversation too many times, haven't we? Everyone has. But yeah, I mean, took a while, but thank goodness it was given.
Yeah, the Kane scored his 60th goal to equalise. This was after Italy scored from pretty much their first opportunity. But throughout the first half, I was chatting with a guy next to me. Was talking about Rashford, and there was a couple of times throughout the game, like in the first half. So we were at the opposite end to where the penalty was scored, and we're seeing Rashford take the ball, and we're just thinking this is still short of his confidence, be it the Manchester United issue or what, I don't know. But there just seem to be little moments where you think Rashford of 2-3 years ago wouldn't have had that moment's hesitation that he appeared to have a couple of times. And it happened a couple of times last night. until he scored. And then we both turned to each other and said, that's the Rashford that we want to see. But just going back to something that you said earlier with Foden dropping deep, it was Foden that passed the ball to Bellingham, who exceptionally took it through the field and passed it to Rashford for him to smash home. But just more of that Rashford feel that he scored that goal in last night.
Well, perfect example is as soon as he scored the goal, I think within 2 or 3 minutes, he's in a pretty much identical position, taking another shot from a fair distance out. I mean, it went just wide, I think. But yeah, I mean, he's certainly a player who knows what he can do, and only once he's done it and done it well will he feel that he can go and keep producing the same level, high level shots or crosses or whatever it is, taking players on. I think Rashford's certainly been a sort of, well, he's been a player who fluctuates in form an awful lot, and it's largely down to confidence. Those times when we used to see Rashford right out on the touchline, 1v1 against a defender, and he's just standing still waiting for them to move. I mean, they're not going to move, mate. Just do something. But when Rashford gets it with a bit of room to run in, or with the confidence that he can take someone on, because he can, pretty much anyone in the world. That's when Rashford's at his best and most dangerous, I think.
Yeah, no, it was great to see. He had a real smile on his face, scoring there. And then with about 15 minutes to go, Harry Kane gets his 61st England goal. Strength that he possesses, and speed still at his age, that he could go through. And where I was standing, I say standing because I was in the safe standing area at Wembley last night, it was almost right down my throat to see him take that shot, and the strength he had to knock it past Donnarumma, who incidentally he had a lot to moan about last night, Donnarumma, which was nice to see. But yeah, Kane finishes it off 3-1 to England, and yes, we're going to Germany next year.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, looking at the fixtures we've got next month, Macedonia and Malta, I was never in any doubt that we were going to be going to the tournament, especially after those first 2 qualifiers when we beat Italy away and beat Ukraine at home. I thought, right, well, that's it straight away.
Yeah.
Because I trusted that Gareth Southgate wouldn't have that mindset, and so that would allow me to get excited. But I think the most important thing personally was just watching us beat a big team again. And I know it's a bit greedy, but I was really after more than one goal, and that's exactly what we got. The first half was pretty even. It was 2 fantastic teams at their best, certainly in Italy's case. But I think we really wiped the floor with them in that sort of middle period of the second half. I think, fantastic. 3-1, 2-goal victory. Yeah, what more could you ask for?
It was good all-round performance. And I don't think there was a player who had an off night. I know we've often spoken about Harry Maguire, but he's still there, and I don't think he put a foot wrong last night.
No, and I don't see why the attention should be on him. I mean, he's a defender just like John Stones is, and he's a player just like everyone else on the pitch. And great performance. Mark Gahey was brilliant when he came on. Absolutely fantastic. And I've got to say, in a qualifying group that I would say is definitely the hardest of any in Europe. I mean, we're in a 5-team group, which is already harder because you don't have one of the minnows. But 4 of the 5 were at the last Euros 2 years ago. So, and we've beaten one of them 7-0 a couple of months ago. So, yeah, we've really dominated what could have been a very difficult group, and it could have gone very differently.
Well, fortunately, it has gone our way, which ultimately has seen us qualify for Germany next year. We've got to cast our minds just ahead. I mean, who are going to be our main opponents for that? I'm guessing we're going to be looking at France, Portugal. I don't know if Spain are the team they once were, but who else could we be looking at? Germany, obviously, as hosts, but can we do it?
One word or 500? No, absolutely we can do it. And I think I was after Euro 21, I was very confident going into Qatar, and after Qatar, I'm very, very confident going into the Euros next year. Portugal have had a fantastic qualifying campaign. They're just wiping the floor with every team they play. Yeah, albeit perhaps an easier group, but you still got to beat the teams in front of you, and they are doing. France, ever the competitor, I think they're going to be knocking on the door for the next 10, 12 years, just like we are. Spain not only confuse me, but frustrate me, because I always feel like Spain will draw 5 games until they need to win, and then they'll win 5-0. So you never know. I mean, Spain could be one of those teams one of those lucky teams that comes through third in their group in Euro 21 and still gets the semi-final final. So I never know what they're going to do. Germany remains to be seen. New manager.
Yes.
I think Belgium are past it, even though they're doing very well in qualifying. I do think they're past it, and I think we would beat them in a head-to-head probably 6, 7, 8 times out of 10 now. And Italy, well, we don't need to say anything because the scorelines speak for themselves. So we can get excited about that.
Well, I mean, interestingly, it's all down to sort of seedings for next year and how we finish the group, and obviously how other teams finish their respective groups. But I was saying earlier that there is a possibility that Italy could be in like pot 4. I think it could be, which, I mean, that we're talking group of death then, aren't we? I mean,
yeah. Well, you probably remember 2 years ago, Portugal, Germany, and France all in with Hungary.
Yes,
and it was only Portugal who could beat Hungary, and that was only in the last 10 minutes. So I think it finished 5-4-4-2 in terms of points in that group. Everyone beating everyone drawing with everyone. So a group of death would be lovely as long as we're not in it.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, well, as well, I mean, the chance of Scotland as well, they've qualified. So, congratulations to them. Don't say it too loud, but no, well done to them. But it's great to get there again. It's going to be interesting to see how it all pans out. But maybe just coming back a little bit to next month, Malta and Macedonia. Do we, even though we've just mentioned the seedings there, are we thinking that Gareth might tamper with or I think tinker is probably a better word, with the starting lineup? So we're going to see maybe more of an Australia lineup for Malta?
Well, I think the important thing is the next 2 games, like you've just said, will have a bearing on seeding, and we need to be in pot 1. That's for sure. So first objective is win the games. Second thing to consider, I would say, is the squad that he picks, regardless of the lineups on match day. The squad needs to be fairly similar, and then you think about, okay, yeah, we need to see a little bit more of the likes of Levi Colwill, Eze, Lewis Dunk, those kinds of players. Trent Alexander-Arnold, can we see him in midfield again? Is Jared Bowen still going to be on form? You know, even if they're getting 45 minutes against Malta, it'd be good to see them. But I also think that it would be important to see, you know, the mainstays, the sort of some of the first names on the team sheet. I think it would be important to see quite a bit of them, because we're not going to see them until March. And even though we might not have an awful lot left to learn from some of them, like Henderson or Kane or Stones, it's important that they get that sort of regular flow of football going on, because inevitably they're going to be the ones who, barring injuries, are going to be starting on that first match day at the Euros.
And let's not forget Bukayo Saka. We'll be back for that, let's hope.
Yeah, I mean, you're an Arsenal fan, are you not?
Yes.
Yeah. So singing his praises. I mean, Arsenal making it very hard for me to dislike them at the moment, particularly Saka. But yeah, no, Saka, unbelievable, especially in June when he got that hat-trick against Macedonia.
Yeah.
So, food for thought.
Yeah, the rest will do him good, hopefully. Aidan, thank you very much for taking the time for joining us. I know you're on Twitter, Tactically Speaking, aren't you? Is that still going well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Football Tactics. I've got tacticallyspeaking.co.uk, and the Twitter handle for that is at Home of Tactics.
Analysing different tactics for different games.
Absolutely, and I will continue to do so.
Lovely. Look forward to seeing more of that. Aidan, thank you very much for joining us. And yeah, let's speak again.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure.
Many thanks to Aidan there. I have no doubt we will catch up again very soon. So as we mentioned, we have Malta home and North Macedonia away next month on the 17th and 20th of November respectively. Both are now out of the running for a place in the Euros next year, although Malta never really were in it, were they? Bless them. But just taking a look at next year, obviously we're there. We also mentioned Scotland, but also qualified are Germany as hosts, Spain and Scotland from Group A, France from Group B, Turkey from D, Belgium and Austria from F, Portugal from Group J. So that's 9 nations from the total of 24 required. Now 20 spots will be decided from the groups, then there'll be 3 from playoffs, and then the hosts, Germany, make the 24. Date for your diary is December the 2nd, 6 p.m. Central European time, so that's 5 o'clock English time. That will be the final tournament draw, although the playoff winners they won't be known until March of next year. So there's plenty still to play for across Europe. Now, I don't like to get political here, but we know that UEFA have banned Russia from taking part in UEFA competitions. Israel are currently 3rd in Group I with 11 points, having played 6 matches. They were supposed to have played Kosovo on the 15th of October. This was postponed because of the escalated situation in that part of the world. Whilst they are 4 points behind Switzerland with a game in hand, 5 points behind leaders Romania with 2 games in hand, they are assured of at least a playoff place. Just wonder how UEFA will stand on this. Many will remember Yugoslavia being denied entry to Euro 92 and Denmark heading to Sweden that year instead. But football comes second, really, at a time like this. It's not a nice situation at all. So thoughts with all the innocent people caught up over there. Right, that's all for this episode. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed it. Also, before I go, just wanted to say nice to meet Matt and Ross, who I met at Wembley. Great to see a few new faces, put faces to names, names to faces, meet in person, that sort of thing. Thanks for stopping by and saying hi. I'll be back with you very soon with those upcoming episodes that I mentioned at the top of the show. Don't forget, in the meantime, you can follow it on social media. Just search Three Lions Podcasts in your search bar and click follow, subscribe or like, whatever takes your fancy. So until the next time, take care of yourselves. Cheers.